Thank you, Antonia. And we want to welcome you again to Building and Sustaining Partnerships for Truancy Prevention Programs. My name is Anna Clough, and I serve as a co-director at the Tribal Youth Resource Center and a lead for our Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. So we want to welcome you here today. You can go to the next slide. On behalf of the Tribal Youth Resource Center, we want to thank you for being a part of today's session. As part of our housekeeping and reminders, this session is presented as part of a project that is supported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The opinions, findings, and conclusions that are presented as part of today's session are those of the presenters and do not represent the Department of Justice. The Tribal Youth Resource Center is a cooperative partner of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and we are currently housed at the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. And we have the opportunity and the privilege to provide free training and technical assistance to all currently funded OJJDP tribal grantees in CTAS Purpose Area 8 and Purpose Area 9. So if you're an OJJDP grantee, we're here to support you. And we're also able to provide free training for all federally recognized tribes. Our mission at the Tribal Youth Resource Center is to enhance the opportunities for Indigenous communities to expand the potential to protect and nurture the most sacred asset, which is the youth. So we are very proud to serve as a cooperative partner of OJJDP, and we do see it as a privilege to walk alongside many of the programs that are being implemented across the country. So I'm very happy to be back here today with Johanna. If you have been taking part in our prior training sessions, you're already familiar with Johanna, but if you're new here today, I just wanted to quickly read through her bio so that you can know why we have her here today. She is a part of the Pasco-Yaqui Itam-Yoemi, I'm going to say it wrong, Itam-Yoemia program. She is a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. She has been a part of so many initiatives, but she serves there as the program manager. She served as a children's services program manager and tribal courts improvement program coordinator. She's worked in tribal youth programs and juvenile advocacy programs as a prosecutor and in the court system. She works to strengthen tribal communities and families through tribally driven and culturally relevant service models with an emphasis on intervention and prevention services through coordinated and integrated service delivery through multiple tribal service agencies. She has worked in various youth programs and children's services through social services and through juvenile diversion programs. And she just has a great familiarity with all that it takes to implement services to support juveniles, especially in intervention and prevention programs. So we are very glad to have her back today to continue conversations about how to develop and sustain effective truancy prevention programs. And we know that for many of our OJJDP tribal grantees, your program may be primarily focusing on truancy prevention, or you may be implementing an intervention that truancy prevention and school attendance are a performance indicator. And so they are, you may be monitoring attendance as part of your other program services. So with that, I want to hand it off to Johanna and welcome you all into the room. If you can, in the chat, please let us know if you are a current OJJDP grantee. And if you're not, let us know where you're joining from today and if you're involved in another initiative or effort that is trying to support tribal youth and truancy prevention. So I'm handing it off to you, Johanna.
Thanks, Anna. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Johanna Farmer. Like Anna says, I've been working for the Pasco-Yaqui tribe for the past 13 years, and I realize most of what I've been doing, if not all of what I've been doing, has been building partnerships and collaborations to make successful programs for youth and families. If we could go to the next slide, what I'd like to share with you is the 3 objectives that we'd like for you to get out of this presentation today. The first is to understand the importance of collaboration and forming partnerships. The next is we'd like you to be able to identify partnership needs, who your key partners are, and then what their motivations might be for joining that partnership. And then finally, we'd like for you to have some tools and resources when you leave here to help build and sustain partnerships. All of these three objectives are leading to how to improve learning and to create stronger families and healthier communities. Next slide. So what is partnership? It's the process of working together to achieve a common goal that's impossible to reach without the efforts of others. There are many components that make up a partnership and a collaboration. There are some things listed here on the slide, and we'll go through some of those things. But part of building a partnership is having that shared ownership, responsibility for, and success in your program. Partners across your community can help you with schools and parents to reduce absenteeism. Now, keep in mind that collaboration is a learned skill. It's not something that comes easy for all of us, and it is also the process of group work. Next slide. Before I talk about the importance of collaboration, I just want to encourage everyone, if you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to leave the question in the chat. At the midway point, I'll answer questions, and then at the end, give you the opportunity again to ask questions. So there are many reasons why collaboration is important. I've listed 4 here. The first one, learning from each other. We always say like 2 minds is better than 1. So when you're working on a project, sometimes you can get stuck on things. And so bringing someone else in can help you think of other ideas. And it's not just learning another perspective from another program that you're working with or another school that you're working with, but also it helps you to understand what their perspective is. So what things that they see are strengths, what things are challenges for them, and how do they think that you could work together in a collaborative manner in order to address those things that they see as challenges. Another is combining strength and expertise. So when we were building the attendance achievement program here at the Pascua-Yaqui tribe, I was working in the prosecutor's office at the time. I was running a tribal youth mentoring program grant. And one of the things I kept thinking was, you know, here I am running a truancy diversion program, but I'm not just a prosecutor, but I'm working in the prosecutor's office. I'm a coordinator. And one of the things I thought was, you know, I'm not an expert in any way in education. While I did attend school, it wasn't like I had the expertise in what it takes to advocate at a school level for a family. So that was where, when we were building the truancy program, one of the things that was really important was for us to bring in partners and to collaborate with people who had strength and expertise that we did not have at the prosecutor's office. So we started to build the collaboration with the police department, who was receiving the referrals, the prosecutor's office, who was processing the citations that we were receiving, and then the education department, who's interacting with youth and families in the schools and has already had good working relationships with the schools. And so we could build all of our strengths and expertise together. So that's one important part of collaboration. Another piece, like I had said before, was building shared ownership. So all strong leaders have a very inclusive style. And when you build a shared ownership into a program, people have a more vested interest in seeing that the project or the program succeeds. One final piece of the importance of collaboration is to bring people together. Now, those of you who work in tribal communities understand and see, based on how we've received funding, based on how we've operated, there are a lot of silos that exist even within our own tribal departments, within our tribal programs. And so collaborating with other programs can really help you to break down those silos that exist. And when you have connections with people, you know, I was texting our education director earlier this morning, and I had mentioned something to her, and she was like, hey, I learned something new. And we've been interacting for a few years, and it's It's that bringing people together, you can start to learn new things, understand new things. Those connections really do matter. And I feel like people will go above and beyond when they have that connection, either to the program or to the people that are in that program. Next slide. So I've talked a little bit about the importance of collaboration in general, but there is an importance in collaboration in tribal truancy prevention programs specifically. It is essential to initiate operations and program services by having that collaboration. When you build that trust, you can boost morale of staff, of the other programs that you're working with. It can also help you to resolve some of the issues that you're facing. I know when I first came on and I was running the mentoring program, a key piece was the advisory board that we had. And the advisory board was made up of a bunch of different people who all had a vested interest in the mentoring program. And they could help me, who didn't know the tribal community yet, to really say, these are kind of the things that we've seen with programs, and here's kind of how you can resolve this issue, or here's an idea about how to resolve the issue. There may be requirements within your program that you're collaborating with. You know, one of the things that came to mind for me was, you know, we have usually letters of support that we submit when we're submitting a grant. And a lot of the letters of support aren't just, oh, we're going to support this program, but we're going to collaborate with this program and either provide resources or staff, or will participate on the advisory board. And then the final piece here is the enhancement of available services that can be offered to youth as a part of collaborative planning and development. And I know Anna had a few points to add to this.
Yeah, I think in some of our past sessions, we were having conversations about how, because we have communities where youth are maybe going to a non-tribally controlled school, in our last dialogue, we were discussing some challenges that communities were having because there was that lack of collaboration between the tribal community and the local school administration. And I think a broader conversation about how, you know, tribal communities can really be impacted by a federal statutory authority that's in place. So if you're an Appeal 280 state, when you're looking at the development and implementation of a truancy prevention program, there may be some jurisdictional complexities there that you have to work through in order to have youth referred into your program. And then you have those just general administrative relationships that may need to be developed in order to get the program services available and accessible to the youth that you're trying to serve. So I didn't know if you had thoughts on that, or for the court that you were working in, Johanna, just about the movement of youth into the program and how partnerships can impact that.
Yeah, so when we first started the attendance achievement program, there had been a number of iterations of programming that was trying to help youth who were truant. And the tribe had actually passed a truancy ordinance and was trying to implement, okay, let's address this truancy issue because it was the #1 juvenile delinquency case that was coming across the court. Almost all of the tribal children attend school off reservation in Tucson Unified School District, so a school district that's not controlled by the tribe. There is one high school on the reservation that has about 80 students, and they're all, it's a charter high school, so still not controlled by the tribe. And so that partnership and collaboration with the schools was so essential. But when we first started the attendance achievement program, and I think this is one good thing to do for everyone, is to sit down with like your key stakeholders and to really map out, okay, what is our current process? And then where are families kind of falling through the cracks, or what do we see as kind of the issues that we're facing? And then how do we address those issues? And when you have your key stakeholders there present, they can say, okay, this is kind of the issue that we're facing. And when we first started the attendance achievement program, almost every case was going through the prosecutor's office. We were filing the citation with the court. They were going through the court process and were getting deferred into a diversion program. So when that was first happening, we were having sometimes where we were having to have school staff come and testify in the court. And school staff were very uncomfortable with having to come into the court to testify in front of families, students that they want to build a trusting relationship with. So in order to address that, we found an administrator at each one of the schools that could come and do the testifying. So it wasn't the school staff that were working directly with the students that was coming and testifying. So that's like one of the main things. That's why it's so important to collaborate, because it really does like open up those lines of communication and helps to build trust. And I think if we hadn't had that first conversation about where are people getting lost and what can we do on the tribal side to kind of impact what's going on the school side, we're willing to do it.
I think one of the questions I would ask those of you here today is just that same question. Are the relationships there, if you're trying to implement the program, are they workable, or are you seeing challenges? And are those challenges based on some of the jurisdictional issues that might be coming up, or are they more just the relational things that might be coming up as part of developing partnerships? And you can go to the next slide. I'll watch the chat and see if we get any feedback on that.
So there are 5 levels of collaboration. And we kind of say the highest level of collaboration is actually collaboration, and that these other levels, while important, sometimes there are needs for different levels of collaboration. So networking is when someone is aware of the program. It's kind of a loosely defined partnership. There's little communication, and all decisions are kind of made independently by the different partners that are in the collaboration. Cooperation is when we provide information to each other. We have somewhat defined roles. There's maybe more formal communication that's taking place, but still all decisions are being made independently. The next level of collaboration is coordination. It's where we share information and resources. We do have defined roles. There's frequent communication. And then this is where we start to get that there's some shared decision-making among the partners. Coalition is the next level of collaboration. It's where we share not just information and resources, but we share ideas. There's frequent and prioritized communication. And then all members have a vote or a voice or a say in the decision-making that's going on in the collaboration. And then the highest level of collaboration is members kind of belong to one system or one partnership. There's frequent communication that's characterized by mutual trust. And then consensus is reached on all decisions. So not only does everyone have a voice in it, but there's a consensus that's reached for decision-making. And like I said before, there are different times where different levels of collaboration are needed. And it's okay to start small and build gradually. We want to address the most urgent needs first, and then we can take time to build trust among partners. Next slide. So what's the advantage of collaborating? We've talked a little bit about some of the advantages. When you're just networking, you're just sharing information for the benefit of all parties. But when you start coordinating, there's a change of activities for the benefit of all parties, and there's an understood goal. For cooperation, then we start dividing resources or sharing resources. And then when we get up to the collaboration or coalition part of it, it's not just dividing or sharing resources, it's also improving the capacity of the other programs or other partners that you're working with. And I would say coalition isn't on here, but I would say the difference between coalition and collaboration is more that higher level of trust that really exists in collaboration being the highest level of collaboration. Next slide. So when you're building, this is where we start to get into some of like the tools or being able to identify who your partners might be. And there's this really nifty TED Talk that talks about products and why some businesses are more successful or not. And I found it really interesting because it can apply to how we're doing our work and how we are building our partnerships. The what is our service that we're providing or our job function. It provides the tangible proof of the purpose of your program. And almost every program knows what they do. The how is how a program operates, the things that set you apart from how another program might operate. And these are the actions that you take to realize the why. And the why is the purpose, the cause, or the belief behind what you're doing. It's the very reason why your program exists. So I want to share with you a little bit of brain science, and I know a very little bit of brain science, but part of it is your limbic brain, which is also known as your animal brain. It's where your flight or fight instinct kind of comes from. It's responsible for your feelings like loyalty and trust, but amazingly, it doesn't have the capacity for language. That's why articulating your feelings can be so difficult at times. So if you consider explaining why you love someone, sometimes you just do, it's a feeling that you have. But if you think about it for a little bit, then you can start to rationalize it. Oh, they're smart, they're funny, they're kind. And that rationalizing is your neocortex, which identifies the why part. It's the rational, analytical part of our brain. It's also the part of our brain that controls language, making it easier to articulate our thoughts rather than our feelings. The limbic brain is powerful in that it drives those gut decisions. When despite all the facts, you trust your gut implicitly and it just feels right. But when we can explain when someone explains what they're doing to why they're doing it, we can understand it as humans, but it doesn't drive our behavior or drive how we interact with someone. When we explain the why first of what we're doing, then it allows us to rationalize with tangible things we say and do. So great leaders inspire action by starting with the why of what they do. So I encourage all of you to think about, why is it that you're doing the job that you're doing, or why is it that your program exists in your community? When people explain what they do and how they do it, that's most of us. But forward-thinking people start with the why. So we can attract those who believe what we believe when we speak on our own why about why we do things. If you know your why, you can help make sure you're driven to get the right partners. And I'll explain in a little bit a tool that you can use on how to pick partners. Next slide. So there are a few factors that can influence collaboration, meaning making it more successful or where maybe it isn't as successful. You can use these factors to help identify partners to collaborate, but also you can use this tool to see, do we have the right environment, the right communication, purposes, resources, tools to be able to build a successful collaboration. So under environment, you can ask yourself, is there a favorable political environment? Does that exist? I know there were a few times where they were trying to get the truancy ordinance passed and the political environment just wasn't right. The other thing about collaboration is sometimes the absence of a mandate can be a barrier for programs to be able to participate. And for those of you that are working with schools that are outside the tribal jurisdiction, that's one of the things that can be a real barrier. So how do you build in mechanisms or mandates that allow for you to collaborate? So once the tribe had passed a truancy ordinance and we had shared it with the school districts, then the school districts felt legally then obligated to share for those students that were living on the reservation if they were having truancy issues. So that's a mandate that existed that encouraged the collaboration. Is there a history of collaboration, of cooperation? So if there's a history of cooperation, sometimes it's easier to reignite the collaboration. Communication, is there an established communication plan? That's one of the most important things about collaboration, is how you are communicating with each other. I feel like transparency and communication are one of the things that allows for there to be trust to be built among programs. Is communication clear? Purpose, is there a shared vision? That's going back to that why. Do you know your why? Are the goals obtainable? Do people feel like we can accomplish the goals that we're looking at? Resources, are there sufficient funds, staff, and skilled leadership to make the collaboration successful? Next slide. Membership characteristics. Is there that mutual respect and trust among members? Are all the right people involved in the partnership? So sometimes it's like, we're working on a project and we realize, oh, we had these people at the table, but we didn't have these people at the table, and it's important that we do. So I'll give you an example of a collaboration. So we have a Children and Families Providers Networking Board. And there was a resolution passed, and it included a number of tribal department directors that were to sit on this Children and Families Provider Networking Board. Well, once we started to meet, we realized, well, there's a lot of things that we're working on that involve the IT department. But when the resolution was being designed and the board was being designed, we thought, oh, well, let's just involve the direct service providers for children and families, because they're the ones that are interacting regularly with them. Now, once we started meeting, we realized, oh, we didn't have all the right people involved. We do need IT here, because part of that is that communication piece. If we have IT involved, if we're looking at a case management system that's going to work across departments, IT needs to be involved in those conversations. And then another department that hadn't been included because they didn't provide direct services to children and families was the facilities department. But when we talk about growing programs, we may need space, and facilities would be one piece of it that we would need. Does the purpose serve everyone? I feel like if people don't have an idea about why they're at a partnership or why they're in a collaboration, sometimes they become really disengaged. Just like, well, I was told by my boss that I needed to be here, but they didn't have the reasoning behind why they needed to be involved in it. Is there flexibility among the members? And then the final kind of factors that influence successful collaboration are the process and structure. Do participants have clear roles? The program I work on right now, the Itamiuemia program, almost all of our projects that we do are a collaboration or a partnership with another program. And we also have a partnership with the other 5 tribes that we're working with. And we could tell that sometimes when we didn't have clear roles about who was doing something, things kind of would fall off. So an example would be we would have like regular weekly calls all together as a group. But when someone wasn't assigned that role to call the meeting, then we kind of would go on without having a meeting. So having those clear roles is important to move your program along, to move your project along. And that's one example of why it is important that we do have roles. Has a group develop policies and procedures? Do all the members have a stake in the outcomes of what the goal is? And then is the collaboration able to adapt? So at the end of the day, successful collaboration boils down to having a vision, enlisting competent members who understand their roles. This competent members goes back to the strengths and expertise. Do you have people who have the expertise and the strengths that you need? Or are you missing someone in your collaboration that you need? Building a collaborative environment, creating a compatible policy. So I'll give another example of the attendance achievement program where we kind of had incompatible policies that existed, and it became a struggle for us to sometimes get those truancy referrals from the schools when we didn't have that compatible policy. So for the tribe, we were thinking, okay, if someone has 10 days of absences, that's when things get really bad at the school and they'll, kick you out if you've missed 10 consecutive days. So we thought, well, if the school sends over referrals when they have, 5 absences and they're struggling with school, then that will be able to get us, the information we're needing. But the schools were waiting. Internally, they had their own, okay, well, we're going to try to address it internally at first, and we're not going to refer until they have excessive absences. And so then by the time it was going through the process of the school referring over to the police department working on writing the citation, sending it over to the prosecutor's office, and then we're, looking at filing with the court. And we were tracking all of those data points to see kind of what was going on, when was it happening. And we were getting sometimes kids who, by the time they had gone through all the process, had missed, 50, 60 days of school. And we realized that part of it was an incompatible policy that existed between the school and tribe. So that's when we come back to the collaboration and say, okay, we have all of this data that we've been tracking. We see when the school is sending them over, this is the average number of absences the student has. And then this is the time that it's taking for the police to send it to the prosecutor's office to file with the court, and then for us to contact the families. And so also one thing I would say that's good is collecting data can be key to helping not just your program, but also your collaboration, because you can go back and say, these are the hard numbers of what we're looking at facing here. Another thing I would say it boils down to is having effective and efficient meetings and communications. I think we've all been there before where it's like, why are we even meeting? Or we have meetings for meeting's sake, or they're not very effective meetings. We don't have agendas. I was reading an article one time and this guy was saying, I just stopped going to meetings that didn't have agendas because I felt like I didn't know what I was bringing to the meeting if I didn't know what we were addressing on the meeting agenda. And so that is one piece, is do you have meeting agendas for your collaborations? Next slide. So how do we pick our partners for our collaboration? So these are just some questions, again, that we're giving you to use as a guideline to help you pick partners for your program. So how will we develop a comprehensive picture of the individuals and organizations that have a stake in the issues we wish to address? So for a truancy program, we can think about, okay, I might need the help of law enforcement. I might need the help of courts, the education department, the schools. Are there other individuals, organizations that have a stake in what we're doing? One of the things we had started to realize with our truancy program was that we needed our social services department involved. And also we needed our behavioral health services involved, and we needed them earlier on in the process. So let's bring them into the collaboration. What criteria will we use to determine who our partners should be? So what kind of factors are we looking at when we're saying what partners we're going to choose? What will we do to ensure we're not overlooking critical partners? So is it we need to ask the partners we currently have? Who else we might need to think about when we're looking at who our partners will be? How do we ensure our partners we choose will be a good fit for our needs, goals, and culture? So some of our partners are critical partners, like the schools that we're partnering with, but maybe some of our other partners, we need to really think about, are these a good fit for what it is our program is trying to do? And then how will we reach out to potential partners? What communication mechanism will we use? How do we share our why with them so they might be invested in the partnership right away? How do we tie our why into their why as a program? What will we communicate as the aim of collaboration when reaching out to potential partners? Will we ask partners to formalize their participation in the collaboration in any way?
And Johanna, I was just going to comment on that because I know across not just our truancy prevention program training events, but in a lot of our other TYRC hosted events, when we talk about the essential nature of partnership development, it is at multiple levels. So when you're first trying to implement a new initiative, you have your internal partnerships that you're developing. And even those can take time when there are service partners that are right there in the community. And then you have this added layer of trying to recruit and maintain these external partnerships. And so you're kind of all collectively coming to the table and trying to reaffirm to each other that, you know, we have this is our objective, this is our goal. We want to have these services accessible to the youth in the community. But it is a lot of work to get a program started, to get the partnerships in place. And I think for you, I know you mentioned a couple things about, you know, here's a partner that we didn't know we needed. So I think for those of you on board, you know, have you been in the position of trying to implement and realize there was a key partner that you were missing? How do you address that? And then for longevity, when we were talking about the roles of the different partners that are coming into the program, solidifying those through MOU. So especially at the tribal level, I think that's important and super helpful. Go ahead and get an MOU in place so that if you have turnover in that department or in that area of service, that someone else can easily come in and assume that role. If there's a particular service that's offered as part of the program, we've seen that be helpful. And we have resources at TYRC if you're in need of to develop an MOU or something like that. And then externally, I think it's the same, developing those partnership agreements so that you have something to go back to if someone leaves or takes a new job or whatever the case may be, a change in school administration. Lots of things can impact those partnerships.
Yeah, not just like Anna was saying, not just the MOUs, but intergovernmental agreements can be helpful. So the tribe has an intergovernmental agreement with Tucson Unified School District. And recently with one of our other collaborations, we entered into an intergovernmental agreement with Pima Community College, as well as the University of Arizona. So talking beyond even just high school, how do we create pathways? And we needed those, you know, IGAs to help solidify, formalize the partnership. Because like Anna says, there are definitely times where people come, people go, and we still need that process to be in place to have that partnership.
When you all were developing your agreements, what was the timeline? Like, how long did it take to get from the start of we need an agreement to actually getting the formal agreement in place? What do you estimate timelines were for some of those agreements?
So for our MOUs that we use internally, the timeline is much shorter. But I would say anywhere from 3 months to 6 months it could take. And for our bigger ones, like our intergovernmental agreements, would take anywhere from 6 months to a year to implement. And just because they're so much more at that external partnership level. So I know while we were developing the Pima Community College IGA, we still had in mind that we were going to agree to this. So we still had the draft of the intergovernmental agreement to be like, this is what we're going to be working on. This is how our partnership is going to look. And now how do we strengthen that, or how do we start to implement that as a partnership? And we were meeting weekly, then we went to bi-weekly once the IGA got in place, and regular emails with each other, that communication piece. But it can take quite a bit of time, and depending on how busy the attorneys are in our Attorney General's office, can also be dependent on how long things take.
Mm-hmm. I was just about to say, we get these great ideas. Oh, we need this partnership agreement. Oh, we need this. And then there's multiple levels of, the tribe may have legal counsel that needs to review things. There may be some fiscal responsibility if there's money being exchanged. So you've got other departments that are coming in. And so just the level of cooperation that has to happen to even support some of these collaborative efforts. I think we recognize that. I think for newly funded grantees, or those of you who have been successful at getting a partnership agreement in place, feel free to share your timeline or any challenges that you faced as you were trying to get an agreement or get some kind of partnership formalized. I just wanted to quickly share that TLPI has a lot of resources on state and tribal partnerships. So if you are working with a non-tribal school and you're looking just for general resources on, how do we collaborate well? I'm going to put a few resources in the chat. Walking on Common Ground. There's some recent resources on just general collaboration. I think have some great pointers in there that flow right into everything that's been shared so far by Johanna. So I'm going to put that in the chat. And then I wanted to make a comment, and maybe could have come earlier in the session, but why is this discussion important on, developing partnerships? And I think especially in truancy prevention, we see truancy as, we say it's a risk factor we know that there's other things happening in the life of that youth. So when you see this attendance increasing, and you're talking about someone's missing 30 days of school, what else is going on in that youth's life? And so when you think, okay, if we don't have the willingness to have a collaborative project that's going to identify and refer youth at the earliest point possible, like that's why these partnerships are so important, because if you delay those services or delay that intervention, what is happening to the youth on the other side of that? And so, the more dangerous situations, risk of life situations. So many other things on the other side of this as why we're having this conversation. Partnership is important. Effective service implementation is important. And so just understanding, the need for that. And I think that's a great why for everybody that's coming to the table.
Yeah, one of the things we realized really early on, or I realized really early on when I started to work in truancy programs, because I had started working for the tribe first under a juvenile defense grant, and then got a tribal youth mentoring program, also, and I was doing both programs. And so the mentoring program was working with youth who are in the juvenile delinquency system. And that's when I started to realize, truancy was kind of this big issue. And we ended up doing a court assessment or a justice system assessment with the Center for Court Innovation. And one of the things that came up time and time again among the stakeholders that were doing this needs assessment was truancy is the biggest issue in the community for juveniles. As far as crimes go, that was one of the things that the justice system needed to address was truancy. And so when I started to do research about truancy, a lot of it isn't issues. Well, there are some school-based issues, transportation issues, or they're getting bullied at school. That was a big thing that we could see as a barrier for students attending school, or academic issues. A lot of what started to unfold when we started to do even our intakes with our families who were entering the attendance achievement program there were a lot of, family or community barriers to these kids. And again, I go back to saying, I'm not an education expert. I am in no way a behavioral health expert. And so we needed those partners because they were able to not just bring their expertise to the table, but they're able to bring their resources to the table. So that was another thing. Our social services department is another example. They have utility assistance for families. They have rental assistance for families, emergency housing assistance. And so being able to access the resources of that partner also was key, because our grant only had, this narrow, we're able to pay for salaries, and then we're able to pay for, the other little, office supplies. But if we were trying to address all the issues a family was facing, there would be no funding that we would be able to utilize within our grant to be able to do that. And so that is another reason why it is important to identify partners who have funding that is available to do this. When I worked in our social services department in children's services, one of the things we were working with foster kids and was identifying partners outside that could provide things like extra Christmas gifts for them. So how do you identify those people that might have the resources that you just don't have available to you? So yeah, I think with truancy, there's such a broad spectrum of things that are going on with a child, with the family, in the community, that you do need partners to do the work. The other thing I was going to say was we had we have a tribal Tanf child welfare grant, and we were working child welfare to our Tanf program. And I remember one time a light bulb came on for one of the Tanf workers because the families were having a shared plan that they were working on. So they didn't have a child welfare plan and a Tanf plan. They just had one plan that they were working on. And the case managers could divide the workload. So, okay, you're monitoring this and I'm monitoring this, or I'm helping with this and you're helping with this. And one of the Tanf case managers says, I realize I cut my job in half by having a partner. So it's having that ability to share some of the work, because there is a massive amount of work that does need to be done. And so how do we pick partners and share the workload for us to be more successful? If we can go to the next slide, I think the other thing, this is just about how do you, when you're building a collaboration map and picking partners, and thinking about what partners to bring to the table, look at these areas when you're thinking about it. What kind of expertise do you need? What kind of information do you need? What kind of people do you need? So I think about when I was running the mentoring program, one of the things was like, I had all these mentors and I didn't have youth because we had dropped in our juvenile delinquency cases, which was a great problem to have, is that we didn't have youth to provide mentoring to. So what we ended up doing was, okay, we need people, we need mentees to provide mentoring to. So we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club here on the reservation. So that was one thing that they brought, was they brought the people that we needed to provide the mentoring to. Products, are there things that they can provide to your program that you're in need of? I think about, are there school uniforms was an issue for some of our families. Can we partner with Walmart, with Target, to be able to provide those resources to our families? I know some of it was, we have a washer and dryer at home, but we run out of laundry soap. And so we were partnering with some of the internal programs, and we were providing, a laundry basket with laundry detergent, with dryer sheets, with the things that they needed to be able to do laundry for the uniforms that they did have. Are there services that they can provide that you're not able to provide? Behavioral health, again, is something that comes to mind. Is, our behavioral health programs offer a lot of different kinds of counseling services. An equine program is an example, art therapy, another example. And those are services that they could bring to the table that were useful for building the truancy program. And then another thing to look at is, what relationships does that partner have with people that might be useful to us in picking partners? Next slide. So here are some challenges just to think about when you're developing partnerships. Is, do you have incompatible missions? And that might be something that trips up the partnership. Pressure, whether it be internal pressure within your program, your department, the tribe you're working with, the school you're working with, or external pressure, political pressure or otherwise. What kind of failures have you had? And are you able to learn from those failures? Competition. So I know at one point in time, it's like, we have, 3 boards, they're all doing the same thing. So someone then starts to divide their attention and their ability to serve on 3 boards. And so can we bring those 3 boards who are maybe serving the same thing, serving the same families, can we bring them all together? And then we're not all competing for people's time to attend meetings or participate in the collaboration. And then duplication can be a challenge also when building partnerships. Next slide.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, and Johanna has shared previously. So if you have not been able to watch some of our prior learning events, I believe, Johanna, I think it was 2020 now. Early in 2020, we did a session and Johanna actually outlined the program that she works in. So that is an excellent example if you're looking at program design for your truancy prevention project. Be sure, we'll share the link to that specific session, and we didn't re-outline it today since we've already done that before. But Pasco Yaqui has an excellent example of a truancy prevention program. And then we just wanted to share a few resources, and so I'll put them in the chat. The state of Oregon does have a resource for promising practices and supporting tribal youth in different communities. And so I'm going to put that in the chat for you all. And then I just wanted to invite you to check out our Tribal Youth Resource Center website, which was recently updated. We are so happy to finally be able to announce that our new website is live and updated, and Johanna and I will probably actually be working to update and include more truancy prevention resources, as well as other things that might be helpful to you if you are looking at developing a truancy prevention program. I had one other example I wanted to share. Apologize really quickly. Oh, I'm going to put in the chat several examples of MOU between local communities. So it might be a school administration, or it might be a state level partnership agreement. I will put those links here in the chat. I'm not going to name each one of them. I'll just put a quick link. And I just wanted to share those examples of memorandum of understanding between tribes and local school districts to formalize the operations and services that are implemented between the school and the tribe. Johanna, I had one other comment from earlier when you were talking about those levels of collaboration. And I think there's, for those communities who maybe are just very initially working with the local school district, and there is the opportunity there for, a workable, I would say, like, not challenging relationship. It's really more just getting things started. When you move into the level of collaboration where there is that shared decision making for you all, I think, is it building maybe the buy-in of the school administration to respect, the opinion of you as the tribal staff members or committee members to like buy into your decision making? Like, what are your thoughts on that, and like developing the relationships that you all developed, the time or the investment, I guess, into those relationships? Maybe some commentary on that.
Yeah, I think, part of it was there was some kind of existing relationship that was there already, but I was new to doing truancy prevention programs, truancy intervention programs with the schools. And I think a lot of it goes back to, and I didn't realize it then, but I realize it now, is like the why of what it is that we do. And so when I was meeting with school staff, I shared a little bit about my own personal journey about why education was important. So both of my grandparents were boarding school survivors, and they always said education was so important. And they really pushed that for us. And so I really believe that education is such an important piece and really uplifts a whole tribal community when people are receiving an education. And the meetings that I was just attending, and I was listening to what school staff were kind of saying were the challenges that they were facing. And so knowing what challenges they were facing, it was like, hey, we can come in and we can help solve the challenges that you're facing. And so I know early on, we were like, okay, we'll just refer since you don't have the people power to really do a lot of like outreach for some of these families, if you can like refer them to our police department, and then our truancy ordinance allows for the police officers to share information with other services that can provide support to families. So they didn't necessarily have to issue a citation. They could just, give us information to work with families. And once we're able to work with families and address their needs, then we're able to get them into school, which is what the school wanted, was, can you get them in their seats, And so that was being able to hear what it was their challenge was, and then us being able to address that challenge through the work of the program, then really helped to build that trust. So we really, guess the saying is, we put our money where our mouth is. We showed up and we proved to them we were going to do what we said we were going to do. And that helped build that trust. But it does take time. And it does take, showing up, being present, listening. I think that's, if you want to move to the next slide, then we can, it goes into what kind of the key takeaways that I think about when we're looking at building a successful collaboration or forming partnerships, is listening to what their challenges are, listening to what people's strengths are. How do we use those things to build the program to make it better for the children and families we're serving? Being patient. Patience. Sometimes things just take time. And if you're consistent and you show them, I'm going to be consistent and I'm going to show up, change it takes time. And sometimes we want things right now, but how do we allow ourselves that space to grow into that highest level of collaboration? And then building trust. And I think that goes back to what I was saying about, when you say you're going to do something, then carry through with that, or communicate like, hey, it didn't happen, but here's why. And then I think one of the things that's kind of been a recent thing with the collaborations that we've been doing here at the tribe is we don't celebrate enough of the successes that we accomplish. And so sometimes we're just doing that day-to-day work and we're not really able to like live in the success that us coming together as partners has really allowed us to do. And so I think one thing to do once you build that partnership or that collaboration is celebrate even those little successes. When you get the MOU or that IGA signed, celebrate it. Do something to recognize the work that everyone put in to get to that point, because sometimes even getting to that point can be a challenge in and of itself. And so if you recognize success, everyone that buy-in is created into the partnership. It's like, oh, look, this is what we can do when we're creating this partnerships. We do have these successes and we can have these tangible things that are getting accomplished. I think the last slide is just says, what is your why? If you want to go to the next slide. And it is about thinking about why you're doing the job that you're doing. Was having a conversation the other day about staff engagement. And one of the things we were talking about is some of us feel it's our highest honor to be public servants, to come and do this work in these communities. And so when we come to work every day, we're coming from that place of our heart. And so we're really passionate about the work and we know why we're doing it. But some people only know the what or the how of the work that they're doing. So how do we engage people to understand the why of the work that they're doing, or the why of their program? If their why is, I need, economic security, and so that's why I'm coming to this job and I'm working every day. But if there's a why, a bigger why to your program goals, for us, when we were looking at truancy, we were looking at our adult population that was in probation, and I would say 80% of them didn't have beyond an 8th grade education. And so for us, it was like, well, how do we decrease the number of people in the justice system? And education is just one tool that we can utilize to prevent people from becoming involved in the justice system, either as a juvenile or as an adult. And so we also can answer any questions if people have questions, or Anna had anything else to add to this part.
No, I wanted to thank you for contributing again to just the growing amount of resources that we're trying to develop for truancy prevention programs that are being implemented for tribal youth across the country. And so this is just one topic. I know there's many topics that go into the development of a truancy prevention program. And so thank you, Johanna, again, for sharing your wisdom and lessons learned being a part of the program that you're working in. We do invite you in the chat. Please feel free to share questions for Johanna. And I'm actually going to put the link for our YouTube channel in the chat because that has several of our past sessions that we've done for truancy prevention. And so just want to say thank you to everyone that's attending today. Feel free to chat or put questions in the question and answer. And Antonio, Laura, I'll let you monitor Q&A for just a minute while I get the other links shared.
And I think, we were talking about those like internal partners that we need at the tribal level or at your program level, those external partners that you need. And I think what Anna was sharing is like, there are these external partners like TLPI that can provide support, technical assistance when you need it. We're here if you want to reach out. I'm available to help provide technical assistance if you need it. So you do have other partners outside to be able to provide support to you in the work that you're doing, even if it's, we're a little farther out. I used to describe it as like, we have this center circle where, these primary stakeholders who are involved in the program. And then we have this second circle of people who maybe we don't interact with regularly, but they're still partners and they provide us with resources and services, but they maybe aren't involved in the day-to-day goings on of our program. And RTA providers are a perfect example of one of the resources and partners that we have that we can utilize to help build our truancy programs.
Yes, we're here to support. So for, as you all, if you're newly implementing or if you just received funding, we're here to support. There's planning and project development resources, but like we just talked about, memorandum of understanding, intergovernmental agreements. If you're at a, even just, I don't know how to develop an agenda for our next partnership meeting. That's why we're here. We have a lot of different resources and can assist with really any level that you're at as you're starting to develop those partnerships. I wanted to share that we received a notice that the coordinated tribal assistance solicitation is open. There should be a press release going out from the Department of Justice if you haven't received it yet, but if you're interested in applying for funding for a tribal youth program or a juvenile healing to wellness court grant or any of the other CTAS purpose areas, just wanted to share that the period is now open for you to begin to apply. You should check the DOJ website for like formal deadlines and things like that, but you're encouraged to apply. I hope that if you're not currently a tribal grantee and you're interested in funding opportunities to support a new project, that you'll check out the CTAS application. And there are actually resources to help with the application, and there's usually a slated set of webinars for each purpose area. So the Department of Justice will provide an overview of the specific purpose area, the funding, the requirements for the application, and then all of the deadlines that you might need to know about if you're interested in applying. And then the Tribal Youth Resource Center's YouTube is in the chat, the link there. You can go to check out all of our prior training events in this area and others. And then be sure to check out our newly revamped website. We are really, really excited about that. And give us feedback. It's new. We're going to be continuing to develop it, but we have a feedback button on the site. So if you're looking for a resource or something and it's not there, or you see something and you want to know more about that, you can request training and technical assistance on our website. You can provide us feedback. You can access a lot of resources in the virtual library. So very happy to have that as a resource available to you and accessible to the public. I'm looking at the chat. Just shared great information. Thank you so much, Edleen. Thank you, John and Ken. I know some people, I saw some people had to log off on the hour, but wanted to say thank you again, Johanna. We appreciate all of your insights today. I don't think we have any other questions or chat right now.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that came to participate. I hope we provided you with some tools, some resources, some information, some ideas that will be able to help you with your program. I appreciate all the work that you're doing in Indian country with our youth. They are our future and they're so precious, and the work you're doing is very important and it is not going unnoticed. So thank you for that.
Antonia or Laura, I don't know if you wanted to share the evaluation link.
The link to the evaluation is in the chat box. It does really help us plan for future events. It's really quick and we're very grateful for your participation. I'll paste it in there again, so just it gets back up to the top.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I just wanted to share the Tribal Youth Resource Center has been working on a new truancy prevention publication. We hope that that will be released sometime after the first of the year. But just wanted to let you know that you can be on the lookout for that. That is includes a lot of comprehensive resources related to tribal truancy prevention specifically, because we know that there's not a lot of resources out there that are specific only to tribal communities. So we're very excited to be releasing that after the first of the year, and we'll share that with all of our OJJDP tribal grantees, and then we'll also have it on our website when it becomes available. But I just want to thank you all again for your attendance today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session, and we hope that you all stay well until we see you again.